So welcome to this brief overview of how to present yourself well on Zoom. I thought it'd be really useful to create a short video so that you could get my top tips on the best things to do. We're going to look at three areas. We're going to look at engagement, how to keep people engaged. We're going to look at content, how to prepare and deliver your content, and also how to manage your participants, your fellow networkers, your team members. So we're going to start here with your radiant presence. So the first thing we need to look at is some basics of how to manage your screen and how to manage where you are in your screen. So what I see an awful lot is either a combination of the pinhead look, that I'm sitting off to the side being quite casual look, that I'm sitting on this side so that you can see my lovely banner look, that I've got this wonderful background thing so that my face is pixelating in an out look. You might be familiar with this one, where you're looking at somebody's nose, not a great look. Or indeed, you might be familiar with this one, where you're just seeing somebody's face in silhouette. The one about looking at people's nose, the big giveaway is, can you see their ceiling? If you can see your ceiling in your screen, it means that your camera is not in the best position. So that's some basic tools. And whenever I do a podcast or a video recording and I'm using Zoom and I've got two people on a screen and I'm going to record it, what I make sure is that the size of their face, their body is positioned in exactly the same place as mine, or the other way around. So I would, if they're sitting in front, I would encourage them to be close enough to the screen, and then I would match my body with them. So say you were doing a video recording. So equally, you don't want to be too far away, because that means that I'm not as connecting with you quite as well. And, you can definitely be too close. But it is suggested, my suggestion is that you do make sure that you have some height above your head. Now you might notice that I'm standing up. So I do a lot of speaking, I give a lot of workshops, I've done some keynote speeches as well. And I would never dream of sitting down to give one of those speeches. So it makes sense to me, it's natural for me to be standing up. There are a number of reasons for that. The first one is that when I'm standing, it means that I'm breathing better. It means that I can actually get the breath right down into the bottom of my lungs rather than just sitting in a seat. It also means that I can project my voice, as if I'm standing at the front of a room, it means I'm automatically projecting and in a more presentational style. Clearly, if I was in a networking meeting, then I would be sitting down and I wouldn't be projecting my voice, but I would still make sure that I was in the center of the screen, that I was looking, and this is the most important thing, at wherever your record button is on your device. The temptation is that if you've got a number of people on networking and maybe you ask them a question, is that you will look down at their face. Or if you're recording or you're on a networking meeting and you have an iPhone, for example, the camera is always off to one side. So if you look at yourself or you'll look at the speaker or the host when you're speaking, then it will look like this. Instead, you need to make sure that you are looking directly into that camera, and then it appears that you're looking this way. So just go back and view some of those videos or some of those recordings of Zoom calls that you've been on, and you will see how that all works and see the difference between somebody that connects with you, who is obviously looking at the camera, and the person that is either looking down at their keyboard, is looking at somebody to talk to, or indeed is making notes as they go along. So I hope that helps for how to prepare. What I've done here is I've created what I call a Zoom zone. So it means that whenever I show up, I've got the same background and I'm giving some subliminal messages. I could have a banner here, but actually what I'm doing here is creating a little bit of personality for you. And in the background, I've got my books on the shelf, and to one side, if I move to one side, I've actually got my awards on the shelf as well. So these are some of the books that I've collaborated with and written myself. And it just gives a little bit of personality. There's enough interest here, rather than just sitting in front of a blank wall, which can be really very stark. So it brings people into you, it brings people into your conversation. Once they've had a look at the background, then they'll concentrate on you. And it means that they'll feel comfortable every time you show up, because they'll not only recognize you, but they'll recognize the background as well. One of the most important ways in which you need to make sure that you show up and that you encourage others to show up on Zoom is that you request or that you put your own camera on. This is a meeting that I'm attending at the moment. This is the third page, but it means two things. One is that if I'm delivering a talk or a webinar or a speech, I have no idea whether you're even in the room. I don't know whether you're engaged with me. I can't see your reactions. I can't invite you into the conversation because I don't know whether or not you're with me, or whether or not you agree with me or not about what's going on. The other thing is that if your camera's not on, it pushes you to the end of the bank of people. So the people that will be on the first page or the second page or whatever, they will be the people with the cameras on. The other thing that's really important if you are running a presentation or a meeting is that you make it clear, I am running a video conference. I'm inviting you to a video conference and I look forward to seeing you. So you're saying to them, I'm expecting to see your face. And as we've already said, one of the most off-putting things is that when people are not looking at you, we're over here. So this is Billie Connolly, as you know. And when I do a webinar like this, I would call somebody's name and ask them to tell me who that is. And then I would say to somebody else, I would say, so John, tell me what Billie Connolly is known for. And the answer would come back, which it did on the last webinar that I did. He's really good at telling stories. And this is the way that you can really engage your audience and keep them engaged, by learning how to tell really good stories. So people aren't really that interested in giving you lots and lots of facts and just telling them stuff. What they want to know is a little bit about you. And so the way to do that is to bring a little bit of your personality into your presentations, particularly. And so, for example, if you're at a networking meeting and you want to tell them that you're the best taxi driver, or you have the best holiday, or you're the best acupuncturist, instead of telling people, I have this business and I work out of so-and-so and I have, however many customers and you can book me here, tell them a story about somebody that you have helped, or that somebody that has employed you or worked with you. Or if you are doing a presentation, then you can use a story as an analogy, or you can even use a phrase as an analogy. It's a bit like. So a car, I use this all the time, a car is a bit like your body, in that your car will give you flashing lights on your dashboard and say that things are wrong here. And your body is the same way. It will give you the same sort of flashing lights. So be inventive. This is a way for you to really engage and keep your audience engaged. Okay, so one of the things that we do on the 6-week online course and the retreat is that not only do I teach how to tell these stories, but we also over the 2-day masterclass, you actually get to practice them, because this is really the key to successful public speaking and presenting, is having somebody with their watchful eye over you. So keep an eye out if you see any more communication from me, or contact me if you're interested in this online course, which has a 2-day masterclass at the end, if we ever get out of lockdown. It would be nice to do that face to face. Okay, so we're here at section 3. We're here talking about how to manage people. And by people, I mean you and your attendees. So either at your meeting, your networking meeting, or the people that have come onto your webinar. So first of all, if you've got Zoom, there is a facility for you to create something where they can be engaged with you even before they've got onto the webinar. So in the waiting room, you could have a video. Hi, thank you for joining us. The video's going to start, the webinar's going to start soon. It's great that you've signed up. Keep an eye out for blah, 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 blah. Or you could even put, you know, some sort of wording in there for them to read to make them feel welcome. Then you have to decide, how are they going to arrive? So, for example, it's a really good idea to mute them on arrival. That's a setting that you can have. I don't know about you, but one of the big bugbears that I've got is that, you know, you're into a meeting and somebody arrives late and their microphone is on and you hear them shuffling papers or sipping their tea or finishing their lunch or talking to their partner in the background. So having people muted is a really good idea if you're managing a meeting. Muting yourself, I think, is polite until you are asked to unmute. So I would always go into a meeting unmuted. But I would always go into a meeting with my video on. I've learned to do this now. It's really important that you turn your video on. So tell them how they can go into the chat box, how they can talk to individual people, how they can talk to everybody, how they can download the chat. But just be aware that that chat, when it is downloaded, will also include all the private messages. So that might be important for you. If you think you're having a private chat to somebody in the meeting and you think nobody else can see it, they won't be able to see it online, but once it's downloaded, they will be able to see that chat. And of course, if you're a facilitator, if you're creating a webinar or a talk, then make sure that you hit the record button. So that's managing people. How do you manage yourself? So this is a big part of what we do in the Radiant Speakers online training, the workshops, the retreats, the masterclasses, is the majority of people have a fear of public speaking. It's one of the most common things that people are fearful about. So whether or not it's you appearing on Zoom, on social media, on video, because a lot of us are having to do that much more nowadays, at the front of a small group of people, in a virtual meeting, in a real meeting, when we all go back to work, standing on stage, whatever it is. There are lots of ways in which I help you to manage your state. The majority of people have the same worries, the same concerns, and it's all about flipping that focus away from you and to the people that you are there to serve. And so if you take your eyes off you and put it on the people that you are going to be communicating with, the best advice I can give you in this very short video is that you need to treat it like a conversation. And therefore, the gestures that you use, the tone of voice that you use, the expressions you use, the words that you use, just check in with yourself all the time. If I was sitting opposite a friend of mine or opposite a colleague that I know, would I be using that turn of phrase? Would I be using that gesture? You know, that gesture I see a lot. Or what would I be doing? We see, you know, our politicians at the moment, they're in crisis mode just like the rest of us. Nobody has taught them how to appear on screen. And it's very obvious that their communication techniques are really very poor. And it's not that their information is good or bad, there's no judgment. But when you cannot put your information over, particularly to the nation, you know, we've seen the disastrous effects that can have on people. Okay, so we are nearly there. Now, the other thing you need to do is to create the journey. So you could have an agenda. I don't know about you, but this, you know, I think, oh, when I see this kind of thing, oh, that looks just like a lot that we're going to have to cover. And I'm already kind of slightly switched off. But you have to be able to tell people in the journey with you. So you will have noticed that throughout this presentation, I have one slide and there are 3 parts of the journey. And all I'm doing is bringing that back up, that slide back up, when we've got to the next part of the journey. So you already know that we're towards the end of this presentation because we're on the last part. We're on the 3rd part of that journey. And then what we need to talk about is how you manage your participants, particularly if you are a facilitator. So whether or not you're, you know, facilitating a meeting or a big Zoom get together, and particularly if you're doing networking, how do you manage the people in the room and how do you engage them all the time? And the best way to do this is to use their first name. So I actually got this great tip off for a friend of mine, Rob Geraghty, and he uses the first name first technique. So if you've been on the webinar with me, or if you know me, you'll know that I will say, okay, so John, I'm going to come to you first, and then Molly, I'm going to come to you. John, can you tell me what it feels like to you when I ask you a question and I use your first name? So I will always warn people by using their first name first, A, because it makes them feel important, we all need to be recognized, and B, because it gives them time to think, all right, okay, yeah, she's going to come to me in a minute, particularly Molly, she's got a bit more time. And you know what? It also means that those people that may be sitting in the background, potentially still with their cameras off, potentially still, you know, doing some work or looking on the phone at something else, they are thinking, oh, I better listen up here, because I may be asked to, and I may be called to take part. So first thing first. The next thing that you need to do is find a way of people communicating with you as you're going along, particularly with a lot of people. So you could get them to raise their hand by pushing the buttons, but that actually takes some time. Not everybody does it. And if you're managing a lot of people, it's quite difficult to see those hands, particularly when you're doing a presentation, you've got the screen up, you may only see 4 or 5 people at once. So the best way to do it is to get them to give you hand gestures. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up if you agree with me. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Give me a thumbs up if you're ready to go to the next session. Give me a thumbs up if you want to ask a question. And asking questions when you go to people. So if you ask a question, did you find that useful? And you see people nodding. So that's called a closed question. Did you, could you, would you, have you? Yes, I've seen that. Then you can go to John. You've seen John nodding. John's already said he's found that useful. So you can say, John, could you unmute yourself and tell me exactly what you found useful about that particular part of the presentation? Good news? Yeah. Okay, so this is where we've got to. The 4 steps that I think that works well for me when I'm doing any kind of presentation is, first of all, I think about the positioning. Now, we haven't done that today, but on the 6-week course, or on the events that I do, one of the parts of the six parts to the pathway is spending a lot of time on how you position yourself as the expert. Obviously, if you're facilitating a meeting and you're the boss and people know you, then you don't need to do that. But it is your job, if you are facilitating, to do just that. You are not there as the person that is facilitating to give people your knowledge. And if people do contribute, then always recognize them and thank them for their contributions, and try not to disagree with them. That's not your job. If you're the facilitator, you are opening up the call to get people's opinions. You need to give great content. Don't give it all away. Particularly if you're doing a webinar or a presentation and you want people to come and work with you, you want to think, oh, there's bits that I need to know, there's bits that he's left out. That means I need to contact him, I need to engage with him, I need to sign up to his program or onto his newsletter so that I can find out more, because this is really great stuff. If you're going to make an offer, don't make it at the end, make it in the middle. Tell them. You can tell them throughout that you've got this great service, and maybe it's discounted, or maybe you've got a free thing that you want to give away, or maybe you've put something specifically together for them. You know, I've created this online course because there is a massive need for it now. I'm not going to be able to run the events that I want to run, or to the retreats for some time. I don't know when that's going to happen. So all of my work has had to go online. So it's a course specifically done. And thankfully this has happened so that I can be really targeted about how I can help people just like you to get the most out of presenting. And some of it will be online. And then you deliver more content. So never do content, offer, goodbye. Always make sure that the offer is somewhere in the middle. Ask questions throughout the presentation. Always keep checking in, whether it's a just a yes answer, or invite people into the conversation. And then ask for feedback. So I'm going to ask, maybe there's 15 people on the call. So Julie, John, Sharon, Nick, and Carol, I'm going to come to each of you in turn. Just give me one word for how you have found this presentation today. So you've got immediate feedback, and if you want to, you can go around everybody, but really you just need 30 seconds of feedback, and it makes everybody nod and say, yeah, that's great. And then decide whether or not you want to have a Q&A session. So the after show party, say to people, respect their time. Okay, we've had our 40 minutes now. I recognize some of you have got to go, but if you would like to stay to the after show party, you supply your own drinks, and I'm going to stay around for a few minutes or so, you know, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it takes, until I've answered some questions. So I hope that helps. This was just a brief overview into how you can use the technology that we've got at the moment to step forward into your power, to be more visible, to be more of help to those clients that are out there that need you or your services. Thanks for watching.